Chapter 2 is all about transformations, and a transformation changes a figure into another figure by either sliding it, flipping it, rotating it, or enlarging or making it smaller. Okay, so we start with an original figure and we perform transformations, and what we get out of it is what we call the image. So today we're going to focus on one type of transformation, and that's called a translation. And we have our definition right here. A translation is a transformation in which we slide the figure. We don't turn it, we don't make it bigger, we don't flip it over. We simply slide it either left, right, or up and down. Okay. It's important to note that every single point on the figure is going to move the exact same distance. That ensures when we perform our translation, we get an image that has the same size and the same shape as the original figure. So first example here, they want us to determine out of these three groups of figures here, which are translations of each other. So number one is not a translation because the red figure and the blue figure are not the same size. Number two is also not a translation because the blue figure is flipped over to give us the red figure. Number three here is actually going to be our translation because the blue figure and the red figure are the same size, they're the same shape, and they have not been turned in any way. They've just been slid. Like, for instance, the blue figure could be slid to the right and down to give us that red figure. So number three is our translation. And we're going to get into other types of transformations that allow us to transform images like 1 and 2, but today we are just focusing on translations. Okay, let's scroll down and see how we perform translations on the coordinate plane. So our instructions for 1 and 2 are to translate the figure on the coordinate plane, and we also want to give the coordinates of the translated image. So in order to perform a translation, we are simply going to move each point on that figure one at a time. So let's start with number 1. It says translate the figure 3 units right and 2 units down. So to do this translation, we are going to start with any point. Let's start with point X here, and we're going to count 1, 2, 3 units to the right and 1, 2 units down and make a point. Okay, that new point is what we call X prime, or the translated point of X, or the transformed point of X. Okay, then we're going to go through and do the same thing for E and I. So if we translate E, 1, 2, 3 units right and 1, 2 units down, our point is right there, and that is what we call E prime. And the same thing for I. If we count 1, 2, 3 units right and 1, 2 units down, that will give us the point I prime, or the image point I. Okay, if we go ahead and connect our dots here, you can see we get that same exact triangle. It hasn't been enlarged or reduced. It hasn't been rotated or flipped. It's simply been slid to the right and down. Okay, finally, let's give our coordinates for the translated image. So the coordinates for X prime are -1, -3. The coordinates for I prime are -1, -5. And the coordinates for E prime are 0, -5. Number 2 says translate the figure 4 units up. So we have a quadrilateral JMXE, and we want to translate that figure 4 units up. So we simply start with whatever point we'd like to. I'll start with point J, and we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4 units up and make our J prime. Okay, let's translate the point M, 1, 2, 3, 4 units up, and we can call that point M prime. X, we can translate it 1, 2, 3, 4 units up, and there's our point X prime. And for E, we can do the same thing, 1, 2, 3, 4 units up, and we get E prime. If we connect our dots, we get that same quadrilateral, same size, same shape. Hasn't been rotated or flipped. It's simply slid up. So let's go ahead and give our images for the translated figure there. So J prime is -2, 1, or left 2, up 1. For M, we are going right 1, up 2, so that's 1, 2. For X, we have X prime, we have 1, 2, 3, right 3, up 1, so that's the point 3, 1. And for E prime, we have the point left 2, up 0, so -2, 0. Example 3 and 4 here are another notation for writing translations. So if you ever see a notation like we have up here where it says xy with an arrow, x plus 5, y minus 1, that's another way of writing a translation. Just like we were talking about, translate the figure 3 units right and 2 units down. Just a different way of writing that, a little bit more concise way. So here's how we perform a translation when we're given this notation. Okay. This number that's connected to our x tells us how much we're going to move right or left. So a positive means we're moving right, and a negative means we are moving left. Okay. This number that is connected to our y, this -1, tells us how much we're moving up or down. Okay, so if it is a positive, we are going up, and if it is a negative, we are going down. So basically, if we were to read this, this says translate the figure 5 units to the right and 1 unit down. So to perform that translation, we are just going to simply count. So let's start with G. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units to the right and 1 unit down, and there is our G prime. Could do the same thing for M. Count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units to the right and 1 unit down. There is our M prime. And the same thing for Y. We can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units to the right and 1 unit down, and there's our translated point Y prime. If we connect the dots there, we see we get the same figure, same size, same shape, just slid over to the right and down 1. So let's go ahead and give the coordinates here for our image. So G prime would be the point 5, -3. M prime would be the point 2, negative. And Y prime is the point 2, -1. Number 4 is that same notation. This is just another fancy way of writing a translation there. So this translation says we are going to not move x at all. Since there's no number attached to x, we're not going left or right. And it says y plus 3, so that means to move the image up 3. So we're going to go for each of our points. Over 0, up 3. So for J, we're just going to count 1, 2, 3, up 3. There's J prime. For M, 1, 2, 3, up gives us M prime. X, 1, 2, 3, gives us X prime. And E, 1, 2, 3, gives us E prime. And if we connect the dot, we will have that translated image. Same size, same shape, just shift it up. So really quickly, the coordinates for J prime are -2, 0. That's left 2, up 0. M is right 1, up 1. So that's the point 1, 1. X is right 1, 2, 3, up 0. So 3, 0 is our X prime. And E prime is left 2, down 1. So -2, 1. All right, so that's how you perform a translation. The other thing we want to be able to do is recognize and describe translations. So example 5 says, describe the translation from figure A, B, C, D to figure A prime, B prime, C prime, and D prime. So we're trying to figure out how we go from the figure on the right here, our red figure, to the figure on the left here. And we want to be able to describe it in both words and in ordered pairs. So let's start out by describing it in words, and all we have to do here is look at one point. So let's look at the point A, and count how many spaces it takes to get from A to A prime. Okay, we always want to start going left or right, because just like with an ordered pair, we give our x value first and our y value second. So to get from A to A prime, we need to go left 1, 2, 3, 4. So left 4. And then we need to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So in words, we are translating that image left 4 and up 6. Right? In order pairs, okay, left 4 means we are going x minus 4. Remember, left is negative, just like here. If you look at our coordinate, our axes there, left is negative. Okay. Then we are going up 6, so that means we are taking our y value, and up means we are adding 6. So in words, that transformation is left 4, up 6. In ordered pairs, it's x minus 4, y plus 6. Okay. Last example here, they're going to ask us to do a couple of translations on the coordinate plane and create a couple different images on that same coordinate plane. So let's start with part A. It says translate the figure 5 units right and 5 units up. What are the coordinates of the image? So all we have to do is count from each point. Then if we count from each point, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There is our x prime. Okay, and we can do the same thing for E and I. So if we count 5 units right and 5 units up, E prime, there's our x prime. E prime should end, or I prime should end up right there. And E prime should end up right there. So there's our image x prime, E prime, I prime with the coordinates 1, 2, 3, 4. X prime is 1, 4. E prime is 2, 2. And I prime is 1, 2. Okay. Then it wants us to take our translated image in part B. It says translate the image x prime, E prime, I prime. So that's this image that we just created here, and move it 3 units left and 1 units down. So let's start with x prime, and if we count 1, 2, 3 units left and 1 unit down, there's our x double prime. So the second time around, we just add a second prime there. We can do the same thing for E and I, and let me actually do this in a different color so we can differentiate here. For E, we count 1, 2, 3 units left and 1 unit down. Sorry, that's for I. That gives us I double prime. And for E, 1, 2, 3 units left and 1 unit down. There is our E double prime. So the coordinates for x double prime are -2, 3. For E double prime, that's -1, 1. And for I double prime, that's -1, 2. And there's another image, another translated image of our original figure XEI. Okay. Part C wants us to describe the translation if we went straight from XEI, so straight from this original figure to our x double prime, E double prime, I double prime. Okay. And if we look at it on the coordinate plane, it should be fairly simple to figure out. Let's say we count from E to E double prime. We're going right 1, 2, and up 1, 2, 3, 4. So right 2, and then we're going up 4. And we also want to write that in ordered pair form here. So right 2 means we are taking our x and we are adding 2. Up 4 means we are taking our y and we are adding 4. So y plus 4 there. Okay. So there are the coordinates, or there's the translation if we're going directly from our original figure xei to x double prime, e double prime, I double prime. And I just want to talk about really quickly how we could figure this out without having to do that on a coordinate plane. How do we figure our final translation? Well, basically we combine our two different translations there. So in translation A, we went 5 units to the right, and then in translation B, we went 3 units back to the left. So think about this. If we went 5 units right and 3 units left, we end up 2 units to the right of where we started, which is where we get that right 2. Let's see if that works for our up and down. It should. So if we go 5 units up and then 1 unit down, it's just like we are going 4 units up, or we're ending up 4 units from where we started, which is where we get that up 4. So one way to do this is on a coordinate plane, but if you can visualize it in your head, you might be able to figure out this final translation without having to do all the work on the coordinate plane.